Thank you to the women here today who have stood up and publicly stated that the new pathway is wrong and it must be stopped. Your determination in helping to educate the public, voicing your concerns to government is truly amazing and heartfelt by so many. I'm personally blown away by your strength and your tenacity and cannot thank you enough for what you have done. I was a victim of a crime that changed my life and that of my family. I was a victim of a system that nearly destroyed my life and that of my family. Today I stand proudly as a survivor alongside those who also seek to be free from the darkness that sexual violence instills on a person's being. I am a survivor of childhood and adult rape. My story is no different to thousands of other stories told on a daily basis throughout Aotearoa, New Zealand. But sadly, many will never be heard and the journey to heal for so many will never begin. Over the last 2 years, government and Tōnest, Te Ohakia Hine National Network Ending Sexual Violence Together have worked tirelessly and passionately together on the Task Force for Action on Sexual Violence. 2 weeks ago, survivors and the sexual violence sector celebrated the release of the report of the Task Force on Sexual Violence along with the Ministry of Women's Affairs research into responding to sexual violence. The Task Force report and the Ministry of Women's Affairs research have shown commitment and understanding to the needs of the sexual violence sector, which in my view will lead to better lives for those affected by sexual violence. Unfortunately though, the same cannot be said for ACC, who have insisted that the new clinical pathway be implemented come hell or high water. Dr. Peter Jansen insists it is not about cost cutting. Well, I'm sorry, I tend to disagree. And the reason being that if it's not about cost cutting, then why on earth fix something that ain't broke? For months now, counsellors, psychotherapists and other service providers have argued that this new pathway will do more harm than good for survivors of sexual violence. But obviously, it's been to no avail. Marches last week, letters, emails and a petition to the Minister of ACC have not been able to halt the implementation of this pathway, with the only concessions being that the Minister will review the pathway in 6 months and that other clinical tools as well as the DSM-4 can be used to determine a diagnosis. This has brought hugely emotional and ethical dilemmas for our therapists and counsellors. Tears flow from them when they tell us that they do not want to put their clients through this pathway as it is unsafe and inhumane. But on the other hand, they know that their clients need their help and they need it now. What the hell are these guys meant to do? Never before has such unity been shown from counsellors, psychotherapists and other service providers. What is that telling the government? These people work at the grassroots level to provide therapy. They know what is required in helping survivors move on from the trauma of sexual violence. ACC chose to take 1 or 2 studies that suited their purposes from research of the Massey guidelines, and to the horror of professional bodies came up with a clinical pathway that will ultimately see too many people who need help to move on with their lives be declined that help. The cost to the country is going to be huge because people who need help to move on feel they will be unable to. So there starts the downward spiral to the economy, our communities, society and lives in general. The question that has been asked is where do survivors go for help when they are declined? Dr. Peter Jansen insists that Rape Crisis Group and the help agencies and mental health will pick these survivors up. I guess we need to remind him and ACC again that these agencies and health organisations are underfunded, under-resourced and are running at ballooning capacity already. Any other suggestions, Mr. Jansen? As I've said, ACC insists this is not about cost cutting, it's about, and I quote from Dr. Peter Jansen, it's about the successful rehabilitation of clients who have developed a mental injury from a sexual assault, end quote. Do not insult us anymore, Mr. Jansen. We are victims of a crime that impacts on one's life by instilling fear, It leaves physical and emotional scars, and it takes away the ability to trust. A crime that can happen to anyone from any walk of life at any time, day or night. Let's just look back at what's going on in Mangere as an example. 2 children and 2 adult females minding their own business, getting on with their lives, and in a few minutes their lives and that of their families have been turned upside down. This could happen to any member of your family. It doesn't matter who you are. Nobody is safe from sexual violence, and that is the reality. This is where our therapists and counsellors come in and help us to live again by helping us to mend the emotional scars, by allowing us to trust again, by alleviating the fear we live with on a daily basis so that we can move on with our lives. Dr. Peter Jansen, Nick Smith, I ask you on behalf of all survivors and therapists to open your eyes, your mind and your heart. We cannot wait for another 6 months. We cannot wait another 6 minutes. What we can do is ask that you stop this pathway and work together to build a pathway that will help people and not destroy them. Thank you.